Hey everybody, it's Peter, and this is the Husqvarna Norden 901. This is an adventure bike that I happen to think is fantastic. So in this review, we're gonna go over this bike in detail, and I'm gonna try to show you some of the things that the other videos aren't showing you. But I'm probably not gonna cover everything that you wanna see, and that's okay, because if you do wanna see more about this bike, I'm filming here at Yard Gear in Fredericton, New Brunswick. Now, Yard Gear doesn't sound like a motorcycle dealer. Obviously, they have everything you need for your yard, but they also sell the complete line of Husqvarna motorcycles, and now they're gonna be carrying Kymco ATVs, side-by-sides, that kind of thing. And all of that I've been given complete access to. To be honest, I've probably been given access to a lawn tractor as well, but you'll have to let me know if you want me to review one of those. But I've been given complete access to their vehicle lineup, so if you have questions about this vehicle that I don't answer in this video, you can let me know in the comments below what you want to know, and I'll come back to you both in the comment section and in future videos. So make sure you subscribe, give this video a like to give Yard Gear a like to let them know that you appreciate me doing this review, and let's get going with this motorcycle. So the other day we reviewed the Husqvarna the Vidpillen 401, and of course it shares pieces with the KTM bikes, and so does this one. This one is like a variation on KTM's adventure bike. It's a parallel twin, just under 900cc engine. It has plenty of power, and you kind of have a sense of what this bike is from that. Now the difference with this bike is in some ways it's toned down just a little bit, and that's an actual decision that Husqvarna has made. So what I think that does is probably aligns this bike a little bit more with the everyday adventure rider and takes it down from sort of that more extreme off-road fully capable bike. And you get a pretty good value, and you get a complete different style package here than you do on the KTM with the really distinctive front end. So you've got some familiar parts here, and you're gonna see that as we go through this bike, that some of the parts are familiar to the KTM reviews that I've done in the past as well, but I like a few key pieces of this. So we're gonna talk about this bike in detail, but before we do, I'm gonna hop on it, we're gonna talk about the seating position, and then we're gonna go front to back and work our way to technology and talk about who this bike is for and what it does well and maybe what it doesn't do as well to help you decide if it's right for you. So before I jump on this bike, I want to say that I'm filming into the sun because I think it gives such a great view of these darker colors here. So if I'm squinting a little bit extra, you have to give me some forgiveness for that one. All right, hopping on this seat. First thing I can tell you, there's like an Alcantara seat we're going to show you as we get a little closer to the bike here, but it's kind of a grippy seat here. And a lot of the design here, the paintwork is brought into the seat. It's really a clean design, and I like that. Now, as adventure bikes go, adventure bikes are tall, and this one is no different. I'm about 6 feet tall. If you are a significant amount shorter than me, you need to be very comfortable with motorcycles to have this bike. There's no way really around it. I believe the seat is height adjustable. I don't think it's very high. In fact, I think it's in a lower position, but it's not so much that this is tall, and this is where the specs can lie to you when you're looking at a motorcycle, because a lot of bikes are tall in seat height, but they have a narrowness to them. This one has a little bit less narrowness to reach the ground. It is a little bit narrow in the front, but it's not as narrow as some other bikes. And what that means is that even though seat heights may be the same, the spread that you need with your legs to reach the ground is going to feel a little taller on this bike. I don't think that's a negative, but it is going to be a negative for some people who are a little bit shorter. What this does, though, with that little bit wider seat, is creates a very comfortable seat that you can really move around on and still be comfortable. And to me, that's important because as you move forward on an adventure bike to just transfer your weight, and as you move back, you want to still be comfortable wherever you are, and that's what this seat provides. It's a very comfortable seat. And again, for your on-road riding, adventure bikes are not just about going off-road. A lot of people use adventure bikes to do their tours with now because you can literally go down any road you come across, and that's where this bike is going to shine. You've got a nice upright seating position, nice and square. We're going to talk about the windscreen when we get a little bit further forward. That is something you're going to have to decide if it works for you or not. There's an aftermarket solution because it is a little shorter, but we'll get to that in a second. But overall, your position very commanding. Mirrors are up high, almost in line with your eyes, so well clear of your body, but a very good position here, and you have a very good passenger seat as well. Very large here. I'm not going to jump on that right now, but overall, very, very comfortable seating position, but it is a little tall, and it might feel a hair taller than some adventure bikes, not all, because of a little bit extra width. Don't let it scare you if you are close to 6 feet tall. You can be shorter than me and comfortable, but if you're 5'7" or shorter, this is going to be a very tall bike. It's going to feel like a very tall bike as well, so you have to be very comfortable with that before you get into this. Let's keep moving through. We'll start from the front and work our way back. All right, so if you've seen my reviews before, you know I always start at the front wheel because the front wheel tells you a lot about the design and the purpose of this bike, at least the purpose that the manufacturer had when they made it. So first thing you've got here is 21-inch all-terrain tires. Now they're not fully all-terrain, they're a road, off-road mix. You could certainly go with a more aggressive off-road tire, but I think this fits what most people are gonna wanna do with this. To me, going too off-road on an adventure bike probably is more dream than reality for a lot of us riders. We're gonna do a lot of riding on the road, but you're gonna go down dirt roads, the odd trail, that kind of thing. You're not gonna be jumping this like a full-on dirt bike. So you think this is the right mix here. I should say that the rims here as well have a cool little design to them. They have almost a texture to it, you know, that gives you a little bit of a sparkle to the rim. So you got a black rim there, spoked rims, of course, to add extra strength. Then you have the radial mount disc brakes, dual discs, of course, ABS, and we'll talk about the ABS as well because it's cornering ABS, which is a more advanced system, which is nice to have as far as technology goes. And of course, the floating disc brakes. Lever feel is fantastic, very firm feel on this. And again, good size brakes, good size wheel. So again, you could go more aggressive with the tire here to go more off-road, but I think that fits what this is. We know that that lever feel is probably good in part because the braided steel lines up here, which is not something you see on every bike. That gives you a couple things on an adventure bike. First of all, just better feel. You do that to a lot of bikes. You can upgrade to those aftermarket on a lot of bikes just to give you better feel. But on an adventure bike, it's also a little bit stronger, give you a little less chance of snagging, something like that. Good long fender here, and you've got you know, radiator there, curved radiator that's got some protection in there. And underneath there, I don't know if you can see it, let's sort of get around here, but you've got a very solid steel bash plate there. So again, it's designed to do what it's going to do. It's a very impressive plate back there. And of course, we'll talk about the fuel tank, how it drops fuel down low to keep the center of gravity lower as well. So you've got all the bits that you would want for a good adventure bike right here. And that's what they're shooting for. They're shooting to give you a great adventure bike. Taking a look at the face of this bike, you can really see Husqvarna's done something different than they do or different than what KTM does with a similar platform here. So the one bit of thing that I've heard some complaints about as I've been doing my research on this bike is that people would like a larger windshield, and Husqvarna at this point, from what I understand, does not offer one. So you'd have to go aftermarket, and there are aftermarket options. What this does though is keep a little bit of wind out of your face. Now to me, it depends on the kind of riding you're doing, because I think that a little bit smaller shield can be better for letting you have clean air hit your helmet instead of buffeting air hit your helmet. But it is worth noting this is a little bit smaller shield. Doesn't bother me too much. Let's turn the bike to the on position just for a second. We're going to show you what the headlights look like. Hopefully it's come up a little bit there. Yeah, you can see the top side there. And as we flash down there, the bottom is your high beam there. There are fog lights. Let's see, they can turn on as well. Again, projector beam fog lights. So you've got full LED lighting on the top, on the bottom, and on the lights here. That is a nice clean white light. One thing to know about the clean white light is your eyes recognize that color better at night. It's closer to daylight in color, so it's much easier to identify if what you're seeing is a rabbit or a rock or something like that. So good lighting there. We'll show you the switch gear in a second here as we turn that on. One thing that's interesting is you have LED signal lights over here. When I turn the key off, the signal light actually stays on. So that's kind of interesting. You could pull over on the side of the road with your signal light on, it will turn on. I don't know if it'll eventually turn off. Oh, there you go, it did eventually turn off. So it's interesting that it just flashes a little bit extra after the key is off, probably just because it's so efficient in its use of power. So one little interesting piece there in the face. Normally I don't focus too much on the fuel tank, but Husqvarna's got a couple interesting things here. Let's just zoom all the way in for a second to the fuel cap. This is not something you see on every type of bike. They have sort of their own Husqvarna style little cap here, which I just think looks cool. It makes the bike look a little bit more special. One thing that's cool about the overall fuel tank on this bike is it does drop fuel down lower onto the bike. So it drops fuel on both sides instead of just keeping it on the tank. And on an adventure bike that already has a high center of gravity, having fuel that comes down to both sides there, like the KTM does as well, gives you a much lower center of gravity. And that's one really strong point to this bike, is it doesn't feel very top heavy compared to the size and look of it. I do want to show you the seat here as well. We talked about sort of how the styling blends in. This is the plastic here, this is the seat, and then you have this sort of perforated look to the area and a grippy seat here. Let's just zoom all the way in again, and you can sort of see that sort of suede type, but it's more of a a firm suede type feel. And then you can sort of see that perforation look there in the sunshine there as well. And that same perforation look comes down here in that bright yellow there. So kind of a nice detailed seat you can see here. It looks cool, it looks more high end. And the price of this bike is not really that expensive, especially for a good adventure bike. And I really appreciate that as well. So you've got some details in this bike, and that's what Husqvarna does really well. It gives you some details on their road bikes that just make it look really nice, and they're just great value. Taking a top-down look at the backside here, you've got everything you need here. So you've got 4 little Allen key screws here you can pull out to put whatever kind of accessory you would want to put on here. Want to put a top box on, want to put something else. Basically, you can put whatever you want. You also have this sort of piece that is separate and can come out here as well through different tools as well that you could pull off and mount different type of accessories. But most of it's going to mount to the top here. So of course, every good adventure bike needs a good solid rack, and that's what you've got. But you will need a little bit of accessories to make this a little bit larger. It does kind of taper down instead of be square like some factory racks on some adventure bikes. I think that's not a huge issue for most people. It sort of fits the style when you don't have anything on, and of course when you do want to put anything on, you can secure it very well. Now you'll notice here the handles as well. Nice handles here for your passenger, open in the front, and a lot of room to move around. So again, braking going forward, you've got the angles that you need to secure your passenger, make them feel very comfortable if they don't want to hold on to you. And you know, that makes a good adventure bike as well. And I mentioned again, that seat here, it's hard to show size on video, but it is a nice wide seat here. It is a very comfortable seat as well. So both driver's seat, passenger seat, you know, rider seat, passenger seat, very comfortable, very wide seats. And I think that's good for comfort. A couple details I want to focus on the side before we dig into the technology here. You've got good adventure bike type stuff here. So again, just looking into the foot pegs here, you've got sort of the option of, on a long tour, having these rubber grips in there that are of course going to help with vibration, but you can take those out and have just the proper steel off-road type grips there as well. So depending on the kind of terrain you're in and what kind of foot grip you want, you've got that, which is nice to have there. Zooming back out again for a second, of course, because the exhaust is nice and high like a typical adventure bike, you get a pretty cool view of this sort of unique swing arm here. So that real good strength you can see in there. Disc brakes through the back here, ABS. And like I said, cornering ABS. What that does is allows the bike to sense when it's cornering and program the ABS differently than if it was in a straight line, which is something that's very nice to have, especially at this price point. So it's a very good point that way. We're showing you the brake side. I don't think I'll show you the shifter side, but I do want to mention shifter side. You do have a quick shifter. So we'll probably show you that in the dash a little bit, but a quick shifter that can be turned on and off, which is super nice to have as well on the 6-speed transmission. All right, we're gonna take a look at the dash right now and all the controls, so you can stop looking at me in the mirror and look straight down from that and see the overall controls that you have to control this bike. We're gonna zoom into those in a second. We're gonna pan across here. You do have a handlebar, and I think that matters on an adventure bike because you can set things up like your phone or something else onto a handlebar type grip, which is pretty good there. We'll show you the controls over there. It's just the start switch and just the kill switch over there. The reason I say phone and not GPS is because behind this somewhat smaller shield, if you look straight into here, which you may not be able to see it on camera here, that mount there says remove for GPS right above your dash. So you can have a GPS above your dash here. Now there is some navigation information in here. I'll be honest, I haven't looked into that as much as I need to. So in the regular dash, there is a way to connect, and I believe it's through your phone. You can connect some navigation through there, which is nice to have. But you also have the ability to add a regular GPS there. So we're gonna turn this screen on right now for you and take a look at what we've got, and then we'll zoom back out and look at the controls. So let's just do that, continue going one shot, see it come to life here. There you go. Even in the broad daylight here, filming a screen is never ever a good situation. It just always shows a lot of glare, but even outside here in the daylight, you can see how good this screen is because it's going to be far clearer in person than it ever is going to be on camera. So I think it says we left our signal lights on. So, okay, so that's interesting to me. There is no four-way flasher or hazard light system on this bike, but there is only, even on a TFT display, it shows you that a signal is on, but it doesn't tell you which one, which is a little bit of an interesting design choice on a TFT display. I'm gonna be honest, that's one thing I don't like about this bike. Everything else, pretty cool. So let's just dig through some of this stuff right here. Well, first of all, we're gonna just sort of clear out the side stand, the transport lock, and you can sort of see the dash in here. So you've got drive modes. The ABS on the left is set to road. You can do that road or off-road. We'll talk about that in a second. Street, rain, and off-road, I believe, is the drive mode. We'll check that in just a second. And then you've got traction control as well. So all of that information is set on there in the center of your dash, and you can set up this dash in different ways. So your tachometer is going to build here. In fact, let's just turn it on for a second. We'll hit the start button here. All right, so as we have it on here, you can sort of see what it runs like. There's your tach. I am going to actually turn it off because it is a little bit noisier to film. not that it's too noisy, but it's just a little noisier to film. So we can see how that comes up. Tack comes on the far side there. It says kill switch pressed. One thing that's interesting as well is when I do press the start button here, you do not have to hold it. It's just like Suzuki's system there. So I just turn it back on again. All right, let's dig into the controls here for a second by hitting the set button, and we'll just go into the motorcycle controls for a second. So motorcycle, you can change your ride mode. Let's select that. So right now it's street. It can be set for rain or off-road, like I said. Very simple to do on the fly. We're going to come back out, leave it on street. You got traction control and the slip regulation essentially, which is we can set for on or off, and you can sort of see in the display what it does by just hitting set there, and you can turn it on or off there, so you can sort of, it lets the rear wheel slide out, which of course is what you may want to do on certain off-road situations. It's going to go back over here. Easy shift is that quick shifter. The interface as well. Why don't we just quickly glance in the interface. Your default look is exactly what we showed you. So it has some information here on the, where am I, right-hand side there. But you can also just sort of get rid of some of that information, or you can go with a much simpler display. So the default shows you a lot of information, but you can clean up the view as you want. And again, that'll just make this all full screen there. So we're going to go back in there. So those are just a couple things. There's bike info here, there's trip info here, navigation info, which again, I believe connects to your cell phone, and all kinds of things in there. Overall, pretty good dash. The tack isn't huge, but the coloring makes it visible. And again, you can expand this tack to the whole, or that display sort of to the whole of the screen, get rid of the trip information on the side there and make it useful. There are no warning lights. Everything is built into the screen here, so you can see your neutral light, which of course the gear indicator's in the center, but your neutral light, your oil light, your engine light, traction control, ABS, all those lights are part of the TFT display. So some bikes choose to do that separately. This one chooses to include it all in. Stay on the same section here. We'll go over to the light switch right there. There is a light switch for those fog lights that we showed you earlier, or those extra driving lights that we showed you earlier. And then of course a 12-volt port over there on the right side, which of course you could loop something through to the handlebar to keep your phone charged. Now let's go over to the controls on the left side. Left side controls, of course, you've got the clutch lever there, pretty easy pull, not a full, lightweight like a 400cc bike, but fine to pull. You've got your headlights over here. So again, flash to pass and a push for the high beam over there. So all of your headlight switches are there. Everything I was just controlling on the dash is right here. Good, easy to tell which button you're on, even with gloves on. So that's a good location. And they're not so big that they're spaced far out. You can easily reach them from your handlebar there. Cruise control's up top. A little hard to read this maybe on the angle, but resume and set, obviously easy to use and easy to reach from your hand as well. Not as easy to reach as this, so again, it's a little bit out of the way on purpose, but that's okay. Signal lights down here, horn down there, and again, I don't see a hazard light, which sort of surprises me on a bike like this, but no big deal. We're gonna go just over to the right side and check out the throttle side. Over here on the throttle side, not a lot to show you, just the kill switch, which is also a start switch. Again, the brake lever that has a good feel to it, but I did want to show you these hand protectors here because they have good coverage. So of course, that's going to keep you protected from stones and gravel when you're driving on those kinds of roads. But you have the connection back here, which means that anything you hit here is not coming on to hit your brake lever and throw you down. That's one of the things you got to keep an eye out when you're going off-road. A little branch can snag on this and jam your front brake on, and on a brakes that are this powerful, they're going to take you down. So you've got some protection there. It's going to shoot everything outside, but it also of course keeps you warmer in the winter, or cool weather, which is nice to have as well. So let's talk about who this bike is for. And normally I don't talk about pricing, and I don't know what this is priced at around the world, but this has got a price tag on it of $15,699. Again, prices can change at any point. I hate putting them in my videos because I want you to click the link in the description to see Yard Gear's pricing, to see if the up-to-date pricing. So what I will say about that is, at this point in time, it is priced very similarly to the Kawasaki Z900 RS SE that I bought, which is nothing like this. It's an on-road bike, and it has probably better brakes, and it has more of a road-tuned suspension, but I think you get far more in this bike than you would in that bike. When you talk about the cornering ABS instead of just ABS, when you talk about the types of traction control that you can sort of enable this, I still have traction control, but then you talked about the auxiliary lighting, and you talk about the ability to take some of the stuff, and this has got adjustable suspension, which I didn't even show you, fully adjustable rebound compression. Everything you need is all adjustable up here. I think this is a really good value in the adventure bike space. So let's talk about who this is for in the adventure bike space. Certainly price matters. It's a parallel twin. It's not a big 4-cylinder or a huge bike, but it is plenty quick. We know the engine, we know everything about it. You've got the ability to put your navigation up here. I think the fault is that Husqvarna at this point, to my knowledge, is not offering a larger screen. I don't know that I would need that for my riding, but of course in this class that is a pretty common thing to have a little bit larger windscreen up there, and it's something you can get. What I will say is the overall style of this bike in person is very impressive. If you were to park this next to a bike that costs almost twice as much in some of the other adventure brands, you would have a hard time thinking that this bike wasn't on par with that just by looking at it. So price is a factor of this bike in Canada for sure, because it seems to be a pretty good value for me. Beyond that, why this over the KTM? I think you're gonna want this if you are honest with yourself. I think the KTM is the, quote, better bike from the spec sheet. But when I say that, it doesn't mean it's better for you. Someone like me isn't gonna benefit from a little bit more of a firm off-road ride, a little bit more from some of those better off-road tires. Someone like me is going to benefit from a bike just like this because that softer suspension will appeal to me. I think you could ride this bike all day long. I think you can do your exploring if you have a route planned out and you don't plan to go down dirt roads or gravel roads or anything like that. You can find those roads and head down this with confidence. I like the fact that the fuel drops low like on the KTM, which gives you a better center of gravity. The wider seat for me isn't an issue, and in fact that's actually a benefit. It gives me, in my mind, a little bit more comfort. So who is this bike really for? It's for somebody who wants something that is lightweight feeling enough to do your country road driving, but the ability to go anywhere, anytime, for a pretty good value, and somebody who's willing to drive something that isn't at every other dealer. Husqvarna, and of course, not as common of a brand name, but a very, very good bike. I'm very impressed with this overall. Like I said, adjustable suspension I didn't talk about enough, but I think that's really worth hitting on. The electronics seem to be pretty good on this bike. I'm very impressed with it. So I think it's for people looking for adventure, for good value, who want to get some of that extra technology in there as well. If you have questions, there's things I didn't answer. Again, I'm filming here at Yard Gear in Fredericton, New Brunswick. Yard Gear doesn't sound like a motorcycle dealer, but they have motorcycles, ATVs, and all of your yard gear. Make sure you check them out. Give this video a like to let them know that you appreciate me having full access to their vehicle lineup. And again, if you have questions that I didn't get to, things that you want me to answer about this bike, let me know in the comment section below and I'll get back to you in future comments and again in future videos because I have complete access to the entire vehicle lineup here. Thanks to Yard Gear, thanks to you for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.